we have ourselves a tie for this bonus objective video between the live-action Grinch movie and the Star Wars Holiday Special. Which one to pick? You know what? It is the holiday season, so just this once, we'll do both. Starting with the more seasonal movie, of course. How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It needs to be said again that regardless of how you feel about this movie, this is by far the best of the Seuss film adaptations. Sure, it started the comedic trend the later films would follow, but this one I feel did it the best. In a way that, even as a not-so-good following of the source material, it's at least very entertaining on its own. The film was directed and co-produced by Ron Howard, with the screenplay by Jeffrey Price and Peter Seaman, the latter two having wrote for a variety of films, both good and bad. And of course, this is still with Universal Pictures, so I wouldn't be too surprised for any callbacks to them showing up in the movie. Now, as with Horton and The Cat in the Hat, you can pretty much expect some of the same sort of cliches and tropes to appear, but unlike those two, this one works them in so well, it's actually hilarious. So if you're ready to put aside your love of the original away for a bit, let us observe and learn how the Grinch stole Christmas. Much like with Horton Hears a Who, this world is set inside something small, like a snowflake, which makes me wonder, would they get a heat death upon landing? Or if their world is a molecule, does it go into the atmosphere and its season changes that way? Well, at any rate, we gaze upon Whoville, which looks pretty good set-wise, but as I mentioned before, the colors feel washed out. Like they wanted to keep to the tone of winter, but it just doesn't appeal well with the Seussian environments. Not to mention, the Whos look pretty ugly. I mean, before they were like hairy non-humans, but they obviously aren't meant to be made into live action since they look very human-like. Just their noses are a bit bigger, and they have really large cheeks. The only one who looks decent is Cindy Lou, probably because she stands out as the only human-looking character. Plus, Taylor Momsen does a decent performance as her. We'll get more into her character later, but for now, it's time to meet who you all came to see. That's right, the Grinch.
Get my cloak. I've been much too tolerant of these juvenile delinquents and their innocent, victimless pranks. So they want to get to know me, do they? They want to spend a little quality time with the Grinch. I guess I could use a little social interaction.
Now that's the face of someone about to do something naughty. So yeah, Jim Carrey again in probably his best Seuss role yet. And you can definitely tell the difference between his performance and Mike Myers in that he's way into his character, which takes the grumpy loner from the book and cartoon, as well as from other stories he was in to make even the snarky cynic fun to watch. Seriously, most of his dialogue is amazing. Just listen to a sampling.
Yes! Down the size of the hat! And this time, I'll keep it all. Your name is Rudolph. You're a freak with a red nose and nobody likes you. Then one day, Santa picks you and you save Christmas. No, forget that part. 6:30, dinner with me. I can't cancel that again. 7 o'clock, wrestle with my self-loathing. I'm booked.
It also helps that the costume design is one of their better choices, as it doesn't appear very restrictive compared to the cat costume, the makeup blends in well with the aesthetics of him, and really it allows him free movement and free expression. He literally is like the Grinch came to life, and he is just a blast to watch. If anything, he is the best part of this movie from beginning to end. Now, unlike the source material where the Whos were into the Christmas spirit of love, kindness, and tolerance, these Whos are all very commercialist who do nothing but shop, spend tons of money, and don't really seem to get what Christmas is truly about. Doesn't help they take after their mayor, played by Jeffrey Tambor, who comes off as very snobbish.
I don't need to remind you that this Christmas marks the 1000th jubilation Whoville's most important celebration.
And the book of Who says very clearly, every size of Who we can measure knows that Whobilation is a time we must treasure. Now, Lou, please tell me that your boys were not up on Mount Crumpet provoking the one creature within 1 billion kilometers of here who hates Christmas.
Shouldn't you be punishing Plankton for stealing your crown? Now, given the runtime, obviously this means they have to prolong the eventual adaptation of the original story by padding it with character development, mostly for Cindy Lou and the Grinch. In Cindy's case, she believes that everyone gets too excited during the holidays and isn't sure if this is really what Christmas is all about. But her life is about to change when she gets told to put away some mail for her father, after the Grinch was seen doing this.
Jury duty, jury duty, jury duty, blackmail, pink slip, chain letter, eviction notice, jury duty.
Where she, of course, meets him for the first time in her life.
The Grinch!
Well, that worked out nicely. Our work here is finished. That is not a chew toy!
Well, I didn't say all of the humor in this movie was good. There's still some cringeworthy ones, too. He eventually decides to save her from being crushed, but then decides to wrap her up with Christmas wrapping to assure her he's still a jerk.
Dad, it was amazing.
You've been practicing your Christmas wrapping, honey. I am so proud of you.
Oh, well...
Now that's holiday.
Sweet little Cindy didn't know what to do. In her head tumbled a conflict or two. If the Grinch was so bad, then why did he save me?
Maybe he just doesn't like people, but isn't beneath saving children. But yeah, as part of his conversion from being bad to kind, we will get to see what makes him the kind of grump he is. Which wasn't very important in the original, since it was all about the lesson regarding Christmas meaning more than giving and receiving. It's reasonable to try and add more character to the Grinch, and let's face it, it's sorta handled well for a standalone take on the character, but I wouldn't call it the best, as we later see, since it still relies on several cliches. Then, as far as Cindy Lou is concerned, she's used to help in understanding him because she was the only one who ever got to interact with him in the original story and cartoon. She didn't have much to do there, but here they had to expand her role, which also leads to giving an arc for the entire town. There's a lot of changes to make it seem like everyone has to learn a lesson before the Grinch can. As for the backstory of the Grinch, we learned this from Cindy interviewing several people, like the mayor, Martha May, who the mayor is interested in, and has a couple minor things going on with her and Cindy's mother, which some scenes were oddly deleted and shown only on TV, and of course, these two elderly sisters who actually raised him.
I hear you know some things about the Grinch.
That makes sense, actually, if you were to compare them as the missing link to their respective races. So in what I would expect from Dr. Seuss, we see that the Grinch came the same way as all babies, from baskets floating from the sky. Though what makes me think this might not be a good idea comes after... Ugly baby, gotta leave it. As well as this bit. Nope, I still don't get the joke, or the significance of that key jar.
It was morning before anybody realized that he was out there.
Well, good thing you did find him, because if you didn't... So even though these two ladies were kind enough to raise him right, he still turned out sadistic and disliked Christmas. It doesn't help that Kid Mayor was also a jerk then, as he is now. But at least Martha May liked him, whether she wants to admit it or not.
Favorite time of year. I just love the colors. The red and the green.
Sounds like someone's been reading Slightly Damned. 4 years before it started. This gets the Grinch to start celebrating Christmas, but in his own way.
The fires of love. Baby, make a little wish. This will be perfect on the top of a tree. Oh, Martha. Oh, Christmas. Everything you've been dreaming of. Christmas of love.
I want you all to look your best tomorrow.
You don't have a chance with her. You're 8 years old and you have a beard.
Hey now, remember Slightly Damned? Even if you can't change how you look, you can still change how you...
Look at that hack job! Stupid privet! Stupid drink! I hate Christmas!
The anger, the fury,
the muscles.
This is on you, Augustus. You drove him to this. Aw, she would have liked it after all. So yeah, what makes this cliche is the fact that he was bullied and peer pressure got to him. And even if this did solidify his hatred for Christmas, it doesn't explain why he was so against it in the first place. I guess he was just born that way is the other cliche you can take from it. Yeah, I feel bad for him, but it's easy to see why it wasn't necessary to understand the original story. All of this was just to pad out the runtime. That's all you need to know. Anyway, as the mayor announces this year's Jubilation event, in which someone is nominated Cheermeister, Cindy nominates the Grinch, which is met with confusion from everyone.
Let me quote a verse from the Book of Who. Thank you. The term Grinchy shall apply when Christmas spirit is in short supply. Now I ask you, does that sound like our holiday cheermeister?
Sounds like somebody likes to cherry pick from the big old book just to benefit themselves.
But the Book of Who says this too. No matter how different a Who may appear, you will always be welcome with holiday cheer.
Well, yes, but the book also says the award cannot go to the Grinch because sometimes things get...
And he makes up his own verses? Wow, you're not a real Whovian. At least this exchange is pretty funny.
What page?
Oops, lost my place, but it's it's in here.
But the book does say the cheermeister is the one who deserves a backslap or a toast, and it goes to the soul at Christmas who needs it most. And I believe that soul is the Grinch. And if you're the Who's I hope you are, you will too.
So you're gonna Kirk Cameron him into liking Christmas? I see nothing wrong coming from this. So she somehow makes her way up the mountain, just as the Grinch is trying to outdo Robbie Rotten in drowning out the sound, though it does make me wonder how Stephen Stephenson would fare as the Grinch.
I'll take the Who pudding. I'll take the roast beast. I clean up this icebox so quick as a flash.
How do you know, Shane? That's their last can of goulash!
And when everything's stolen from A to the Z, I enter the flourish. And stuff at the tree.
This leads into a funny bit with him trying to scare her away, only for her to tell him about the nomination.
I know you hate Christmas, but what if it's all just a misunderstanding?
Don't care.
I mean, I myself am having some Yuletide doubts. But maybe if you can reunite with the Who's and be a part of Christmas...
Maybe if you can reunite with the Who's and be a part of Christmas...
Grow up!
Then maybe it'll be all right for me too.
I'm sorry, your session is over. Please make another appointment with the receptionist on the way out.
Please, please, you have to accept the award.
Award? You never mentioned an award.
Well, of course, mention an award, and he gets excited like any egomaniac.
Oh, all right. I don't know if it's that adorable twinkle in your eye or that nonconformist streak that reminds me of a younger, less hairy me. But you've convinced me. Who knows? This jubilation could change my entire outlook on life.
Really?
No.
This is followed up with some more funny Grinch scenes, but at this point I feel like these are things you need to see for yourself since, again, most of these are really damn funny. But for time's sake, I can't show you all of them. More or less, the Grinch almost doesn't go even after stealing from a mountain climber, but Max drops him down the garbage chute. That seems to go both ways. And it leads to...
Hello, Martha.
Really? But at least it's followed up with this bit. So despite a rocky start, everyone begins the festivities and performing certain events with him that seem to over-exaggerate all the things we do on Christmas. I question the pudding and fudge bits, but one part that I found funny, even if it does come out as being too adult-emittingly, is the eggnog scene that was cut.
The old Whoville record has just been broken! I guess I can't hold on to the crown forever!
It's funny because he's short. But despite all this, the Grinch finally gets into the spirit of things after winning a sack race. So it looks like Cindy's plan worked. However, after a deleted scene of everyone passing gifts to each other, the mayor gives the Grinch something awful.
The gift of a Christmas shave. Yes. Good times, huh?
You deserve every bad thing that's about to happen, Mayor Hole. Especially after he proposes Martha May to marry him with a car as an offering.
Gifts are quite dazzling.
Of course they are. That's what it's all about, isn't it? That's what it's always been about. You want to know what happens to your gifts? They all come to me. In your garbage. You see what I'm saying? In your garbage. I could hang myself with all the bad Christmas neckties I found at the dump. The avarice never ends. I want golf clubs, I want diamonds, I want a pony so I can ride it twice, get bored, and sell it to make glue.
Funny how he just summed up the problem with the Who's just then. Probably learned that from living alone all this time in a place that gets garbage, yet doesn't overflow back down the mountain.
One teeny tiny Christmas tradition I find quite meaningful. Mistletoe. Now pucker up and kiss it, Whoville!
He decides to go on a rampage by burning down the tree, causing all sorts of accidents, and causing a green screen explosion. Yeah, I got nothing.
Hurt, Lou. I'm hurt and I don't hurt easily. But you and your family, I'm so disappointed. Can we just get back to Christmas the way it should be?
You're the one who triggered him, you irresponsible prick. Of course, they just get back to celebrating by erecting a new tree. It's at this point the book becomes more prominent in plot, as now the Grinch is dreading the next day. After getting inspiration from Max the dog, he goes through a pretty edgy version of the classic Grinch song. It's not bad, actually, and I do like some of the things that happen, like this bit.
Ow. Airbag's a little slow. But that's what these tests are for!
The one major difference between versions is he doesn't use Max right away, because his sleigh is rocket-powered. After a scene of him flying down the mountain and nearly dying, he makes it to Whoville where he begins his thefts. It plays out like you would expect, sort of like the original story, but exaggerated and filled with gags. As for his encounter with Cindy Lou, well, of course he has to hide himself since she knows what he looks like.
Santa, what's Christmas really about?
Vengeance!
Presents, I suppose.
I was afraid of that.
Is she really fooled so easily? So much for the smart 6-year-old. Then, of course, he's gotta get his revenge on the mayor. But when he tries to leave, his sleigh has run out of gas. So he has to use Max to get to the top in order to reenact the moment where he would hear the Who's reaction. Of course, because of the change in plot, we do see the Who's sad and depressed at first. But then, after the mayor gets dragged out of his house by a cop car that the Grinch tied his bed to, he starts to
Fight the Grinch. Destroy Christmas. Invite the Grinch! Destroy Christmas!
And how the hell do you know this? I mean, you're right, but what made you think he was capable of it? He blames Cindy for trying to get the Grinch involved with Christmas, but then her father says,
I'm glad he took our presents.
You're glad everything is gone. You're glad that the Grinch virtually wrecked, no, not wrecked, pulverized Christmas. Is that what I'm hearing from you, Lou?
You can't hurt Christmas, Mr. Mayor, because it isn't about the gifts or the contests or the fancy lights. That's what Cindy's been trying to tell everyone. And me. She's been trying to tell me.
What is wrong with you? This is a child.
She's my child. And she happens to be right, by the way.
You hardly had much of a character arc, though I suppose one of the deleted scenes did have you trying to understand your daughter more. Really, this was just a rushed resolution to teach what is wrong with commercialism, which could have been done with only the mayor or a small group, and not the entire village. But whatever. The Grinch hears their joy and willing to celebrate Christmas anyway, which leads to him realizing
Christmas,
he thought.
doesn't come from a star. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more.
Max! Help me! I'm feeling...
his heart then grows bigger. He starts to feel jolly and merry, and is now more of a nicer Robbie Rotten around Christmas time. Of course, he still has to save the presents to prove he means it.
Oh well, it's just toys, right?
Hi, Mr. Grinch!
What are you doing up there?
I came to see you.
Oh right, she did take the garbage chute up to try and meet the Grinch again. Gotta wrap up their character arcs somehow. He saves her and the gifts, and they both go sleighing down the mountain in funny fashion. Of course, we need to have some last-minute drama, as the brakes are destroyed, and they have to ride through town. They get saved by a combination of Martha and Cindy's light plan. And with that, the Grinch admits his wrongdoings to the town.
And I'm sorry.
Aren't you gonna cuff me? Put me in a chokehold? Blind me with pepper spray?
You heard him, officer. He admitted it.
I'd go with the pepper spray.
Yes, I heard him all right. He said he was sorry.
And so Martha May confesses her feelings for the Grinch. He restores light to the town that was apparently tied to this one tree. Cindy gives him a lighthearted feeling of happiness, and they all celebrate the Whoville feast in his cave. All's well that ends well, I guess.
Who wants the gizzard? I do. Too late. That'll be mine.
And that was the 2000 film adaptation of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And yes, it still holds up for me as a fun and enjoyable Christmas movie. Yes, I know it doesn't hold well as a faithful adaptation to the source material, as apart from having to pad out to movie length, their use of commercialism on the Who's, the Grinch's backstory and use of humor can be off-putting to whatever message the original had. Yet when you separate that and just treat it as a standalone feature, it does come out to be a fun Jim Carrey flick with a likable grump, some nice visuals, and a still somewhat decent story. In comparison to the live-action Cat in the Hat film, this one at least attempts to take the Sue story and provide their own spin on things without coming off as too cringeworthy. The changes they made feel more natural and still close to how they could be in an updated light. And it feels entertaining enough where I never stop to think about how creepy the Grinch is. Well, except Grinch Baby, but other than that, I just really love how funny the movie is. This is comedy done right to where even a weak story can be easy to sit through, and I definitely see myself watching this every year. To me, it's another Grinch adaptation that's a classic. And while I do love the cartoon version as well, you should find time to see them both. They're worth the holiday joy and cheer, and I easily recommend it to everyone. Come back next time for something not really Christmas themed, but is often played close to that time anyway, in a galaxy far, far away.
How I hate their happy noise. There's only one thing I hate more, come to think of it, and that's the people who keep.
Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here. Max! Fetch me my sedative! How to take care of those pesky memories.